Hi, this is Emma with Cruelty Free You and Me. First, thank you so much for supporting our Patreon and helping us to support our community. Today I'm going to lead you through a short yoga series to get us up and moving, to create more space for our minds, for our bodies, for our communities, and for the world around us. You don't need a lot to practice yoga. You simply need time and space, at least enough to stretch your arms out wide. If you happen to have a yoga mat, amazing. If you happen to have yoga blocks, cool. If you don't have these things, a towel or something soft to rest your knees on will be beneficial. And if you don't have blocks, a couple of thick books would also be a great substitute. We're going to get started today in a comfortable seated position. So I'm here sat cross-legged, and if this is uncomfortable, maybe you take your block or even a pillow and bring it underneath of your sit bones. From here, find a few moments to get settled in. Rest your hands along your legs when you're feeling a little more at ease in your space. Take a moment to gently close the eyes, and we'll start to focus in on some slow, deep breath. Inhaling fully through the nose, noticing the belly and chest fill up, and the crown of the head reach tall. As you exhale, let the shoulders drop down away from the ears. The muscles of the face and jaw relax. And spend a few more moments here in stillness, letting everything slow down from the day. Take one last full deep inhale, reaching the crown of the head as high to your ceiling as you can. And when you begin to exhale, let the chin fall down towards the chest. We'll begin a slow motion circle of the head over to the left. And really take your time here. Imagine you're reaching the crown of your head slowly to each corner of your space. Feel free to pause in any extra tight places, needing those spaces to soften. And then with ease, let your chin come back to center. And we'll do the same thing over to the right. Take a deep inhale, sit up tall. And then as you exhale, we're reversing that slow motion circle. Maybe try to revisit one of those tight spots you noticed on the first pass, or find something new to give your attention to. And take your time. Once your chin makes its way back to center, we'll keep the chin tucked close towards the chest. And we'll do a few circles with our shoulders, really beginning to connect our breath with our movement. As you next inhale, shrug the shoulders forward and lift them up to the ears. And as you exhale, circle the shoulders back, squeeze them together, and slide them down the spine. We'll try it twice more. Inhale, lift the shoulders a little bit higher, get tall. Exhale, circle back, squeeze even more, slide down. Last round here, making that circle dramatic. Inhale, lift the shoulders up to your ceiling. Exhale, circle the shoulders back, press the chest forward, slide the shoulders down. Relax the shoulders completely again, and gently begin to blink your eyes open. If you're sat up on a block, go ahead and set it off to the side. And we're going to connect the soles of the feet together out in front of us in the seated position called Baddha Konasana, this kind of diamond-shaped position of the legs. They can be as close or as far away as it sort of feels attainable to you, so that you can really sit down through your sit bones and lift up tall through the chest. Before we take a forward fold here, we're just going to take some gentle movements from side to side. Bring your left hand to your right knee, right fingertips back behind you. Take a deep inhale to sit up really tall, and as you exhale, we'll twist towards the right. Kind of using the strength of your shoulders to help open your chest. Maybe take the gaze back behind you, if it's okay on the neck. Take another deep breath here, rising through the chest. Take a full exhale, spinning even deeper. Then very gently begin to let this go, and the chest comes back to the front of the space. Same idea, other side. Left fingers behind you, right hand to the knee. Inhale lifts the chest, and exhale helps you twist. Same idea here, just in the opposite direction. Keeping the breath slow and letting the belly fill up with air and squeeze the air out to twist. Again, when you find yourself inhaling, you'll slowly let that twist go. And from here, we'll begin to forward fold. No worries if your hips already feel tight in this position. It might just be a little lean forward for you today. Catching a hold of the shins with the fingertips. Inhale to again lengthen through the spine. We'll keep that long, flat back. Start to hinge from the waist. Again, maybe that's just a little lean forward. Things are feeling really stiff or stuck in the hips or low back, you might gently let yourself rock from side to side. And especially in these first few moments of our yoga practice, we're not forcing anything. Just trying to find a little movement in the body, maybe for the first time today. If things feel good, perhaps the hands walk away from you and you let your belly come a bit closer towards the legs. The goal here is not to get your face to your feet, even though that might seem like it. You're just starting to open up the hips here. Give this one last moment, trying to draw the shoulders away from the ears, sending the chest forward. And then with your next inhale, use the hands to help press you back to a completely upright position. We'll stretch out through the left leg so the sole of the foot reaches forward and fold the right foot so that it comes in towards the inner thigh. We're taking a hamstring stretch here. And I know for a lot of runners or people with tight hamstrings, this position might already be a lot of a hamstring stretch, and that's totally fine. To ease the kind of intensity here, you can always bend this knee a bit so that you can, again, try to focus on a long upper body. You'll take an inhale to sit up tall, maybe even reach those arms up to help feel that sensation. And then as you exhale again, we're hinging from the waist. Hands can come down to frame the leg, and you can use the strength of your upper body to support this stretch. Again, maybe that gentle rocking motion feels appropriate, kind of helps trick me into softening those muscles. Again, the goal isn't to get your face to your leg, it's to stretch your hamstrings. So take it as far into this as it feels necessary. You might be really flexible and grabbing a hold of the ankle or even the sole of the foot. But even if you're just leaning forward, you can always amplify this stretch by curling the toes back towards the crown of your head. Give this another moment here. Again, soft shoulders. And then you'll use your inhale to slowly help sit you back upright. We're going to take this right leg and bring the ankle just over your stretched out left knee. From here, fingers will drop back behind you and we'll turn this into a hip stretch, sliding that left foot to the mat, any amount here, and trying to, again, sit up tall. You'll hear that a lot today. Hopefully, once you get into this sort of figure four position, you'll notice a stretch on the outer right thigh, the hip and glute area. And again, this might be plenty. You're using those arms to help lift the chest, feel pretty proud in this position. And you're using this left leg to create this pinning sensation. If you would like a little bit more, you can always invite that left heel in or use the hands to help sit you up tall once again. Feel free to move around again too if that feels nice. Just trying to get into the legs. Maybe you've sat for a while today, or maybe you've done a lot of running. This always helps kind of open these hips up. We'll give this one last breath. Again, really tall here wherever you're at. And then from here, slide that left leg out, let the right leg stretch out too, and give both legs a little shake. Maybe circle through the ankles. Mine sound like popcorn today. You can point and flex the feet a few times and even bang the calves up and down on the ground, getting that blood flowing again. Before we head on to that right leg, those same stretches to equal everything out, we're going to fire up our core a little bit with boat pose or navasana. This pose is a balance on our tailbone, so it's going to require a little bit of strength through our trunk and our quad muscles. To get here, you'll bend the legs in, draw them as close in towards the belly as you can, squeezing those knees towards one another. Taking the hands either behind, well, not either, definitely behind those thighs, we'll start to pull the belly in towards the spine and see if we can't float the heels a little bit off of the ground. This might be a challenge for you. If you've not practiced this pose quite a lot, it's a kind of precarious place to find some balance. So maybe you hang out here. If you'd like to add a little more challenge into this, you can lift the heels in line with the knees. Maybe this is your edge. If you've got those really stretched out hamstrings, maybe you try to stretch those legs all the way to the ceiling. Again, pulling the belly in, using these really strong legs to make this happen. You're also using the really strong legs to make this happen. Whatever works for you. Floats your boat, maybe. From here, whatever level of this you find yourself in, we're gonna fire up those legs even more and bring the hands off the legs, using only the strength of our core to keep this supported. For those of you who wanna take this even further, maybe even look up. That challenges the balance even more. We're here for one more big, tall, proud boat moment. Deep inhale lifts the chest. Slow exhale keeps you here. And then from here, legs bend, feet come back to the mat. Let those knees fall out to the side once again. We're finding ourselves back in this Baddha Konasana, that hip stretch we took right at the top of our practice. Again, deep inhale to help you sit up nice and tall. And if that boat pose sped up your breath, you can use these next few moments to slow it down. Hands can either stay on the shins if that's helping you lengthen, or maybe you're finding some more space, letting the palms walk away from you. That gentle rock side to side is always welcome here. And again, no pressure to get your face to your feet. Just feel the stretch, whatever that means for you. Shoulders drop away from the ears, chest and crown of the head pull forward. This is your last inhale, here at least. And then taking your time, you'll start to press yourself back to seated. And this time we're stretching out through our right leg, bringing the sole of the foot out to the top of your space, folding that left heel in towards the inner thigh, that Jani Shushasana hamstring stretch. Again, if you need a little bend in that knee to take sort of the pressure out of the back of that leg, totally appropriate. Whatever kind of option there feels right for you, you'll start to inhale, maybe reach those arms up to help you reach up tall. And then as you exhale again, you're hinging right from the waist, leading with the chest into this fold. Hands might come under the shoulders if this feels intense, kind of help press into the ground and support this stretch. If you're feeling really good or extra inspired to fold deeper, maybe hands start to walk out towards the ankle or shin. No pressure to grab or bind though. You see me swaying a bit from side to side because my hamstrings are a bit tight today. It even happens to your yoga teacher. And give this another moment or so. Maybe even curling those toes back towards you, feeling even some stretch in the lower part of your leg. Nice, and then your inhale. Once again, we'll start to pick ourselves back up, and we'll move into that hip stretch we did on the first side, this sort of figure four shape. Left ankle comes onto the right thigh, just above the knee joint. Fingers come back behind you so that you can stay nice and tall. You'll lean back just a little bit to bring the sole of your right foot to the mat. So if you can sort of see here, you've got this kind of number 4 shape in those legs. The hands behind you again are helping you to lift the chest, and whatever amount you drag that right heel in, the more intense this will become as it gets closer to the body. Again, you might feel some kind of rocking motion from side to side. And ideally, we're isolating the stretch in the hip joint. You don't want to feel any pain, definitely, in the ankle or knee. Just a stretch in the thigh. So finding a spot that makes that happen for you. It doesn't have to match mine. And take another few moments here. One day, maybe you get so bendy in these legs, you can even wrap the arms around them and really pull everything in tight. And give this another moment. Really tall in the chest. And then very gently again, you'll slide the right leg out, extend the left leg to match it, and give them both a little bit of a shake again. From here, crossing at those ankles, we're rocking up to all fours, coming to hands and knees. Take a moment to get yourself sort of situated in this more upright position. Palms will come underneath of the shoulders, fingers spread nice and wide. You want to see the color of your mat or your carpet in between each and every one of your fingers. The knees are under the hips, and we'll roll through a few rounds of these cat-cow tilts. So it's a arch and a back bend, kind of combined with the breath. As you inhale, you'll let the belly drop, the chest lift, maybe even the gaze lift slightly. Think really mild back bend. And then as you exhale, you'll dome through the spine, tuck the tailbone under, the chin in, kind of Halloween cat style. We'll try that motion a couple more times, following our own breath. Inhaling, letting the belly drop, shoulders slightly pull back. Exhaling, pressing the mat away, pressing through the shoulders and rounding up. Give this 1 or 2 more rounds here. And if there's any additional motion, maybe letting the hips sway around from side to side or any kind of movement through the shoulders that feels good, take it. This is kind of your time to explore how the body is moving for you today. And after your last Halloween cat round, you're going to find a nice neutral back. We'll begin to tuck our toes underneath, and we're pressing ourselves into our downward facing dog. So with the toes curled under, press through the feet, lift the knees, and we're shifting our weight back towards our legs. So our tailbone becomes the highest point in the body. The feet are about hip width apart still, and heels don't need to touch the mat. With that little lift through the heels, you can find some movement pedaling back and forth from leg to leg, bending one knee, sinking the opposite heel to the mat, followed by the other. This pose takes a lot of strength. It's our kind of home base in most yoga practices. So taking a few moments to let it start to feel familiar. Maybe while you're here, giving the head a little shake, yes and no. Again, you might explore shifting some weight through the shoulders, just kind of giving everything a systems check. The head is nice and neutral, hanging towards the mat. The chest is pressing back towards the thighs. We'll take one last breath in a neutral, kind of sinking each heel evenly breath. And then while you're looking back at the feet, step the big toes slightly closer together. We'll take a deep inhale here. Lift the left leg as high as you can. Pretend like you're doing the splits in the air. Some of you might even be. Reach, reach, reach to the toes. Before you go anywhere, bring your gaze forward so you can see where you're headed. Bend that left knee, and then step the foot forward lightly in between your hands. We'll keep the right hand, the opposite hand to foot, to the mat. You might add a block under that palm if this feels a little intense. We're taking a twist to the left, so lifting those left fingers up, twisting towards that front left knee, this revolved side angle. Your back heel is off of the ground, and you're reaching through that top arm, so you're not dumping in that base shoulder. Legs are really active here, and the core is squeezing to help you twist. Remain here for one more breath. Maybe twist a little bit more. You'll let your top fingers release down to the ground. Maybe move your block out of the way. And we're lifting up into a high lunge position. So bringing those shoulders in line with the hips, the legs will stay as they are. This feels wobbly. You want your feet about train tracks width apart here. And that front knee, again, bent at about 90. Back heel's lifted, and a lot of stretch to that back thigh. Once you feel loaded in the legs, bring the arms in line with the ears, adding a little activation through the sides of the body. Then, with an exhale, let the hips get just a bit heavier. So hopefully, you're feeling a big stretch through the back thigh. Take one more breath where you're at. From this crescent lunge, we're pivoting the back heel to the mat, opening the hips and chest to the side into our warrior two. Hopefully here you landed with your front heel in line with the arch of the back foot. Totally fine if it wasn't. Take a moment to kind of correct it there. Once you're feeling a little more in that space in the legs, front knee's still bent at 90, you'll tee out through the arms. Engage to the belly. Think of tucking the tailbone under so your core is nice and flat here. The arms are active, but the shoulders aren't crunched. Drop them away from the ears. And take a few breaths, letting gravity start to open these hips out to the side. Gaze can come out over those front fingers. And your back pinky toe is nice and pressed to the mat. Give this one last big, strong, powerful breath. In through the nose, out through the nose, sinking just a little deeper. Keep the legs frozen. We'll reverse our warrior. Flip your left hand to the ceiling. You're going to reach up and let yourself slightly tilt back here. Your right hand can either be on the thigh or on the shin. Maybe you want to go for a bind here. Just don't put any pressure on the knee joint. They don't like that inward direction. Take a few moments here, noticing the sides of the ribs expanding, Getting that space in between each one. Take one more deep inhale. Stay for the exhale. And bring yourself back to neutral. If the legs are getting tired, no worries. We're taking a break by stretching the front left leg, maybe walking the back heel in an inch or so, setting up for triangle. You'll begin to tilt forward through those left fingers until you tip. Maybe your left hand finds your shin. This is another good place for your block or your book to rest the hand on if that's a bit of a reach. Maybe you've got a really long wingspan, those fingers can go to the floor. Whatever you've got here, stretch both legs. This feels wobbly, you might even bring that back foot in a bit further. We're trying to open the front of the body, including the hips, and stretch in every direction. Through the arms, through the legs. Give it another beat here. The breath sped up. This is a nice place to let it calm down. Good. Bring your gaze down to the mat. I'm going to challenge you with a little bit of a balance. We're moving towards what's called half moon pose. We're going to stand on our left leg and our left hand. So before you go too far, look down at the mat. You'll bend again into the left leg. Keep that right arm either extended or maybe bring it to the hip if you'd like to take it out of the equation here. Your block is going to move ahead of your left foot towards the pinky edge side, so you've got a little bit of space to balance. Maybe take a couple little hops with that back right leg. With the hand on the block, or maybe even the mat if you want a little more challenge, step up onto that left leg, and you're trying to open your hips again to the side like we did in triangle. Lift through that back right pinky toe, trying to get it in line with the hips, and again, gaze can stay down here. Maybe you begin to float that right hand up to the ceiling, and it's totally fine if this one feels wobbly. If you have access to a wall, maybe even practicing this up against it at first, if this is a new place to be for you. Hang out here for one more breath, and if you'd like to add on a challenge, maybe the gaze spins up to the ceiling. Right before you let everything fall, take a little bend into the left leg and let yourself settle into a standing forward fold. Bend the knees, let the belly come towards the thighs. Maybe grab opposite elbows and take a few moments to hang here. Doesn't have to be a super intense hamstring stretch unless it feels good. Maybe just a moment to let that low back relax after a couple of strengthening poses. And relaxing your hands down to the mat, we'll step the feet a little bit wider than hip width apart. If you're on a yoga mat, maybe think toes towards the outer edges of it. We're going to move into a squat or a malasana. And this one can be tricky, especially if your hips are really tight here. And that's okay. We can make it happen in whatever body we've got. One of my favorites, especially if the knees are pretty sensitive, you can bring forearms to thighs and kind of take this almost like a relaxed chair situation. Maybe it's a lot on those quads, but you get the idea. If you have a prop nearby, maybe hands come to the block, that helps you sink down. And maybe those hips are really open. You can start to really sink those hips down. Fingers can be again on blocks, on the mat. Maybe you sit on your block. Find something that works for you that feels relatively comfortable. After a few moments here, hopefully things start to open up. And you're trying to sink those heels to the mat. It's okay if they're a little lifted, but the idea of them pressing down one day is there. If you can spare the hands, maybe bring the palms into prayer. Use the elbows to drive the knees apart, taking it a bit further. We're going to hang out here for another slow round of breath, getting tall wherever you're at. From our malasana, we're bringing the hands to the mat, again about shoulder width apart, lifting the hips, turning the toes forward, and taking a few big steps back so that we return to our downward facing dog. Take a moment to check that those hands are shoulder width apart. Take a moment to step those feet about hip width apart. And again, feel free to pedal here from heel to heel, shifting the weight around and kind of checking in to see how you're feeling after all the movement we've just done for the left side. Again, head and neck is relaxed, not holding any tension there. And sending the chest back towards the thighs, lifting through the tailbone. Looking back at those big toes, bring them slightly closer together. And this time we're lifting the right leg as high up to the ceiling as you can get. You're trying to draw the distance from foot to foot as wide and long as you can. Maybe even sinking the left heel closer to the mat. Looking forward so you know where you're headed, bend the right leg, and with as much grace as you that right foot forward in between the palms. We're moving into that revolved side angle, that twist, so your left hand either stays on the ground or you can add your block underneath of the left palm. Your right hand is reaching up for the ceiling, so you're turning towards that front right leg. Check that the ankle and knee are stacked, your back heel is lifted, and you're really twisting everything from the waist up here. Keep the belly engaged a bit to help you with that twist. Again, you're not crunching in the left shoulder. You're lifting up and out. Really strong in this one. Keep that breath full. And we'll be here for one last breath. Unwinding from the twist, let fingertips touch down. Maybe move your block off to the side if you've got it. We're moving into that high lunge or crescent lunge. Back heel stays lifted. You'll use the strength of your low back to pick your shoulders up over those hips. And front knee is bent at about 90. If you feel a little wobbly, you'll likely want to spread the distance from foot to foot wide on your mat. When your legs feel loaded, bring those arms in line with the ears. Feel that activation from the waist to the fingertips. Then maybe as you exhale, sink a little bit deeper. Be here for one last strong breath. Press through that back heel. We're moving to warrior two from here, pivoting the back heel to the mat, and again, teeing out through the arms. Same idea as the first side. You want your front heel somewhat in line with the arch of the back foot, back toes slightly turned in. Once this feels comfortable here in the legs, maybe let your weight sink just a bit deeper so you're really experiencing that opening in the hips, kind of rolling away from the midline of the body. Teeing out through the arms, bringing the gaze over those front fingers, and letting gravity do its thing. You're active through the belly, you're tucking the tailbone under. And give this another breath. We're keeping the legs frozen for another moment in challenge. Reach that right arm up and back into this reverse warrior. Again, you're finding this big stretch to the sides of the ribs, all those little intercostal muscles between them. Your left hand can either be above or below the knee, or even wrapped around the back for a little extra challenge, just not on the knee joint. Take a few more moments here. Maybe let that right knee get a little heavier so you can take the stretch deeper. Nice full breath. And then again, slowly coming back to neutral. We're stretching the front right leg for triangle here. If this feels like a really wide stance, it does for me. You can bring that back foot in a little bit. And once those legs feel nice and strong and straight, begin to reach so far forward, the upper body tilts. Again, maybe your hand finds your block, your shin, or even the mat, kind of depending on what feels right for you today. And expand again in every direction. Press through each toe. Reach through both sets of fingers. I even like to imagine the crown of my head moving away from my hips, helping my torso to get long. Breathe here for another moment, trying to stack the hips. Feel that opening happening in the thighs. And we've got our balance challenge again, that half moon. If you would like your block under that right hand, now's the time to grab it. I'm gonna try it here without, I might fall, we'll see. So our weight has to shift forward. You can always heel toe that back set of left toes in. You want your fingertips to come to the pinky edge side of your right foot, maybe further than a foot's length ahead of you. As you begin to stand on the right leg, activate that top left leg, think pinky toe towards the ceiling. Gaze down makes balance a lot easier, kind of focusing it on one spot on the ground. If you want a challenge, you're always welcome to look to the side or even all the way up. And imagining here we're stacking hip over hip, shoulder over shoulder, really challenging the balance. Lots of core engagement has to support it. Give this one more moment, kind of finding your edge, maybe lifting that heel a little higher, and then we get a break after this. Both fingers and both toes are going to find the mat for another standing forward fold. Feel free this time Again, to bend the knees, if that feels good, kind of letting the low back release. If you would like a stretch in your shoulders, you might interlace the fingers, bringing them behind the back, and stretching them any amount, lifting them a little, or even sending them all the way overhead. Kind of depends on your shoulders. Again, a little movement in any variation of this usually feels nice. Relaxing through the neck. If the arms are overhead, go ahead and return them back to the back, unclasp, and once again, we'll find our squat, that malasana. You can turn those toes out slightly here. And again, we've got lots of options to make our way into this. Forearms to the thighs in this kind of supported squat might be plenty for your knees and your hips. This can be a really extreme pose, so take your time and really listen to what your body needs. Maybe now that we've been here once before, things feel a little easier. Maybe you bring the block to a lower level, or maybe you repeat the first side, whatever works. Same idea as the first side. Maybe palms come into prayer. You take a few moments to breathe here. It's okay if the hands need to remain on the ground so that your joints feel protected. There's a difference between finding your edge and challenging yourself and putting yourself in pain. We really want to listen to how our bodies and our breath is responding to the poses that we're doing in our practice. Maybe they're different from week to week or practice to practice. Being okay with where you're at today. Hang out for one last slow breath. And then from here, we're actually not moving back to down dog as we did on the first side. We're making our way to seated. So depending on how deep you are in this, maybe you simply just bring the hands behind you and plop down. My favorite transition, super graceful. From here, we're actually done with the challenging part of our practice. Give yourself a moment to stretch the legs out, maybe shake them around or bang the calves around. I like to circle through the ankles a couple times in each direction too. We folded forward a good amount of our practice today, so to kind of get the whole body involved, we'll lay down and take a few moments in our bridge pose. I'm going to give you two options here. I'll kind of show you and then let you lay down. So it's hard to see when you're laying down, right? You'll lay onto the back, bend those knees so the heels come right in front of your sit bones. Not super wide, not feet together. Goldilocks right in the middle. Maybe even if you've got long arms, you can brush the fingers down to check that they're not too wide here. We're moving towards bridge pose, which is lifting the hips away from the ground. But before you do, we'll protect the neck by tucking our shoulder blades as close together under the back as possible. Hands can press down next to the sides. Take a deep inhale. And then as you exhale, you'll lift those hips as high up to the ceiling as they will get. This takes a lot of engagement through the front of the body and the back of the body. I don't want you to feel pinching in the low back. If you do, maybe drop it a little lower so it's not so intense. If you'd like some support here, you might interlace the hands and kind of clasp them together, press the pinky edge sides of the arms down. And another option here, if you'd like a little bit more relaxing of a bridge, you can take your block under your sacrum, the solid part of your hips. Not your spine, not your tailbone, again, right in between. Or maybe you lift it up to a higher setting if you're really feeling that back bend here. Whatever you decide to do, we're going to linger here for about 3-4 breaths, letting the front of the body open up. So I demoed that there for you. Now you can take your time to get in it. Same idea, bending those knees in, taking a moment to kind of plant the feet down, and then choose your own adventure. If you want to bring the block under the hips, that's my favorite. Let the weight rest down on it. Maybe you even pulse through a few sort of rounds of bridge, lifting the hips, following your own breath. Making sure those shoulders are still tucked under, keeping the neck pressed away from the mat. Whatever you're doing here, we'll find one last moment with those hips lifted. And then when you're ready to come down, slowly return the hips to the mat and let the shoulders untuck. The last guided pose I'll lead you through is going to be our spinal twist. You can bring those feet a little closer together. Draw the knees into the chest and give yourself a little hug. You deserve it. You've done a lot of work. maybe rocking a bit from side to side. And in this spinal twist, we'll send both knees to the right as you reach your right arm out in the opposite direction. This can be a lot on lower backs. If you'd like to add a prop underneath of your knees so it's not as intense of a twist, feel free to. If it does feel good, maybe you're using your hand to help guide those knees a little further to the opposite side of that left shoulder. Then slowly we'll come onto our backs, hug the knees into the chest again, and take that twist gently to the opposite direction. As knees drop to the sides, the right arm reaches out behind you, maybe even turning the gaze over the shoulder, letting the eyes settle closed. Taking your time again to come back to center, we're finishing up our yoga practice today in a pose called Shavasana. It's our final resting pose at the end of our practice. Stretch the legs out long and let the feet be separated here. The ankles kind of fall out to the sides. Tuck the shoulder muscles under the upper back, and the last thing you have to do here is to release any last control you might have over the breath. Maybe start that by taking a deep inhale in, exhaling through the mouth, letting the lips seal, and simply observing the breath coming in and out of the body for the next minute or so. Feel free to stay here as long as you'd like. You can pause the video now and let yourself rest longer. When you're ready to wake up, begin to invite that awareness back into some slow, full breath. And we'll begin to wiggle the fingers and toes, inviting movement back into the hands and feet. Circle through the ankles and wrists a few times in each direction. And let the head tilt from shoulder to shoulder. Taking your time, bring the soles of the feet onto the mat. And gently roll over to the right side, using your right arm as a pillow for one last restful moment. When you feel ready, and with as little effort as possible, begin to press yourself back to a comfortable cross-legged position, trying as best you can to keep these eyes closed, and coming back to a nice tall seat. Take a moment to be really grateful for the time, the effort, and energy that you've set aside for yourself and for your yoga practice. Gently begin to blink your eyes open. And I'd like to thank you for sharing your practice with me today.